Welcome to the BOGART Effect, a wealthy wisdom podcast. The following BOGART Effect podcast is intended for general information purposes only. The information discussed is no substitute for personalized investment advice from BOGART or another investment professional. Please see important disclosure information at the end of the presentation. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the BOGART Effect. I've got Jung with me, and we're going to be talking about Social Security. This is perfect timing. Jung just did a webinar on Social Security. And when we originally launched the BOGART Effect, it was to take some of the topics that we're presenting on and make them a little bit more, just say, conversational,
right.
and take the structure out of the presentation away. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions around Social Security. I think a lot of our clients underappreciate the value that it has on their financial wellness. And I think, part of it is, we want to educate and talk a little bit about some of the things that we're seeing. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the changes that we're seeing that are going to happen and just dive in. So thanks for the time, Jung. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So what is Social Security? Let's start there, right? And just high level, make it easy.
Social Security are retirement benefits that are paid out to qualified recipients. So qualified, meaning that you have generally at least 40 credits of work history, that you are a citizen. And those citizens are able to receive retirement benefits through the Social Security Administration. And what a lot of folks, this is a huge misconception, is that there is like a pot of money that was set aside. So as you pay into Social Security, there's like an account for you. That's not the case. So the Social Security beneficiaries today that are receiving benefits, whether it be retirees, disabled citizens, they're survivors or dependents. The current workers are the ones that are paying. So our paychecks are deducted 6.2%.
Yep.
And for folks, it's there's a limit to what they tax is 6.2% up to $176,100. This year, this changes.
It goes up every single year.
Yes.
It doesn't go down. It goes up.
Of course. And that could change too. I know that's one of the controversial topics that we're going to talk about later. But yes, so the current workers are the ones who are paying for the recipients of the current benefit.
Yeah, and there's about $3 trillion sitting in the trust fund now. The question that a lot of folks have is it going to be there when I need it or you need it, respectively?
Yeah.
And the answer is, under current structure, no. It won't. Mm-hmm. And right now, the U.S. Social Security Trust Fund, it is the largest holder of U.S. government debt. Most people don't know that. Yeah. But the way Social Security was designed, it was never intended to be 100% replacement of anyone's living expenses. And it was also never intended to be a full dependency of the U.S. government either, right? So it's intended to be completely separate, completely standalone, and its own entity.
Exactly.
Now, as we're seeing, there's a tremendous amount of political influence on it, given the demographics of those that are drawing off of it, those that are going to be impacted by decisions associated with it, et cetera. But, I think for me, a lot of folks really just kind of don't fundamentally understand how to, let's just say, take their benefits or even optimize their benefits. And I wanted to pull on the thread of as you were describing it, Social Security's retirement benefits primarily, right? It was designed to be a retirement program. Now there's a disability component associated with it. There's also a survivorship component associated. When we talk about retirement benefits, though, it's not only your individual benefits, but it's any spousal benefits associated with those as well. When it comes to let's just say optimization or timing of Social Security, there's over 77,000 timing options for a married couple. So, there's so much analysis that needs to be done here, and candidly, it's evolving. But what I would say is on the retirement front, the earliest someone can take it is 62. Then there's full retirement age based upon their age. So anyone born 1960 or later at 67, there's some ratcheting down, but essentially between 66 and 67 is full retirement age, and then at age 70 is what you would say is the max possible. So
The latest.
between your full retirement age and age 70, you can get what are called delayed retirement credits. It's a little bit of an enhancement, but the way that I tend to frame Social Security as a discussion from a planning perspective is every household's going to be different. To just generically say this is the strategy, candidly, I think it's a little irresponsible, right? Like we got to look at it. We need to integrate Social Security and the optimization of Social Security for your household, for your plan, your situation. Yeah, at a very high level, I love to treat Social Security like an investment. What I mean by that is the decision to wait from 62 to full retirement age, it's about 5% a year, just because of discounting that Social Security applies. There's also what are called cost of living adjustments. And if we look at COLAs, cost of living adjustments over the last 40 years, that's about 2.7% a year. If we look at it over the last 20 years, it's about 3.8, 3.9%. More recent years, inflation's been a little bit higher. But for just illustrative purposes, let's use the 40-year number because these are longer durations of time. Just the decision to wait by not taking the discount and then having cost of living adjustments, that's 7.7% per year. Now, we mentioned the delayed retirement credits. Well, the delayed retirement credits is full retirement age up to 70. They give you 8% a year plus cost of living adjustments. Because of that framework, the way I just described it, a lot of people say, oh, I need to wait till 70.
Right.
That might not be the right answer, though. Yeah. And so this is where the integration of a plan, to me, is so important. When I look at a household, it's not only the assets that they have, but it's the withdrawal rate associated with said assets. You know, and this is an example where if somebody's withdrawing 2, 3, or 4% of their portfolio, yes, they have the luxury to really treat Social Security like an investment. We can defer, optimize, but for a household that's drawing at 6 or 7 or 8%, we might need Social Security as early as possible to take the pressure off of the portfolio from a longevity perspective. And so the point I'm making is that there is no one size fits all recommendation here. Yes, there are optimizations or practical matters that may or may not make sense, but we need to be factoring it in related to the plan. One more iteration of this is how does it impact your spouse?
Right.
Not only from the retirement benefits now, but survivorship benefits. And this is one where I find super fascinating because the way that survivorship benefits work is a spouse is entitled to their own or the better of their deceased spouse.
Right.
So there could be a situation where it makes sense to take benefits off of, let's just say, the lower income spouse, defer the benefits of the higher income spouse, get all those delayed retirement credits, maximize that piece. And then when something happens to one or the other, you get stepped up.
Right.
You know, and just to put some numbers on this, let's say, for example, my benefit is, let's just say $3,000 a month. And let's say my wife on her own earnings history is, let's just say $500 a month because she didn't work full time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when I start taking Social Security, my wife's entitled to hers, the $500, or half of mine, $1,500. Okay, boom. So obviously in that case, we would take the $1,500. But if something were to happen to me, right, and again, I'm aging myself before my years, right? But like if something were to happen to me, well, all of a sudden she would then get the $3,000. However, the $1,500 goes away, right? So yes, her $1,500 becomes $3,000, but now all of a sudden we're in a situation where that net household combined income just went down by 50% off of the Social Security benefits, and it has a material impact. And this is a great example of why we live in the world of planning, and we need to have a plan, and we need to make sure that we're interfacing this directly related to the economic benefits here.
Right.
How does someone become qualified for benefits? Let's just hit that real quick because I know we danced around it.
Yeah, sure. So a person needs to work about 40 credits, and that equates to about 10 years.
10 years, yeah. So it's 4 credits a year.
Right, and they have to be a U.S. citizen.
Okay.
But that's basically about it, how you become qualified.
And then we I know I hit it, but the earliest someone can get it is age 62.
It's age 62, yes, yes. There's called a personal insurance amount, and that is basically equal to like a pension, okay? At a certain age, which is the full retirement age, you are, you are due the 100% of the benefits. And if you start collecting, let's say anybody born after 1960, their full retirement age is age 67. So someone wants to start collecting Social Security benefits prior to their full retirement retirement age, well, that PIA is going to be reduced. And so the opposite happens. If you want to collect beyond your full retirement age, then that's when you get that 8% increase to your benefits until your latest retirement age, which is age 70.
Yeah, delayed retirement credits.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and so this is one where there are lots of tools that you can use to help with calculating these. We're more than happy to use ours. Obviously, we do it as part of our planning process for all of our clients, and it's something that has to be consistently reviewed over and over and over again.
Yeah, I would say it's such an important part of the overall comprehensive planning. This is a part of the reason why I absolutely love what I do, because no two situation is alike, right? And, I want to go back to that point that you made about the withdrawal rates. So I think, we don't want to market time, but the situation that we are in the market, I can also dictate when is the best time to start Social Security.
Sure.
Because if we're in a very volatile period like we are right now, or a period like 2022, one of the top 10 worst years in history, if we can tap into a resource where we can provide you some income and let your account recover, that you're effectively that withdrawal rate that you're having to take home is going to be less.
Well, so I want to pull on this thread more because you're absolutely right. When you're looking at, let's just say, the deaccumulation phase of your life, when you're spending off of your portfolio, the first thing I think you need to look at is what are your income sources, dedicated income sources, and Social Security absolutely is one of them. The income off your portfolio is another one of them, right? And so what ends up happening is when we look at just the segmentation of the portfolio, by the way, you could have other income sources, real estate income, pension income. We got to look at everything in aggregate, right? But when we're looking at just the portfolio portion, you're absolutely right. Like, the markets are going to do what the markets do. We want to structure it in a manner where we can control what we can control. But one of the ways to reduce emotional stress on someone's decisions related to their portfolio is to look at the income sources. And it might be, by the way, it might not be necessarily the best financial decision, but sometimes it's the best emotional decision when we're looking at the timing and integration of any type of income source. Right. Annuities as an example, Social Security as one, pensions, et cetera, right? Making sure that we're factoring all of that into the portfolio at aggregate.
Right. And this also ties back into the importance of planning, because you want to control that risk that you can and have a plan against the risk that you can't. Right?
Absolutely.
And 2022 is still such a great example, because there's sequence of return risk. And for those of you that don't know, sequence of return risk is the risk of the markets being down when you have to start drawing from it. I think 2022 is one of the, we're not the best of years, as far as like to retire, right? Sure. In fact, I think it's probably one of the worst years in history. In recent history, yeah. Yeah. So I worked with a lot of clients to devise plans. How do we reproduce the income that you need, but also try to control the losses that you've already experienced in value, but not locking it in? Yep.
No, that's a great way of articulating it. So probably the number one question I get around Social Security is, will it still be there?
I think so. I probably am more of on the optimistic side, but you and I were just talking about, baby boomers, right? And you made such a great point. I, in fact, just overheard you saying that. But baby boomers are the biggest voting population.
Without a doubt.
And regardless of what side of politics that, I don't think either party is going to really risk their...
They don't want to touch it. No, yeah. but here's the thing, right? Like, we've been through this before with regards to the solvency of Social Security. Go back to the Reagan administration and similar environment to where we're in now, right? The conversation is that the trust fund's running out, that it won't be there, that they're not going to be able to honor the promises. And I think to frame like why this is a conversation, well, the reality of it is that we have a declining workforce.
Yeah.
And this is one where we now have more baby boomers ramping up, drawing on Social Security benefits, as they should. But at the same time, too, we have less active participants in the workforce. We have declining population. So less number of people contributing and more people drawing, right? So we see the crash course that's going to happen.
Right. And living longer because of medical advancements. Great
point as well. So, by the way, when Social Security was founded in 1935, the average age was like 68, right? Great point.
Yeah.
Now, this is analogous to what we saw, though, in the late 80s under the Reagan administration.
Exactly.
And similar, no politician wanted to touch it, right? So it was one of those things where all of a sudden in the 11th and a half hour, they came through and they made some reforms. And by the way, anyone who is, let's just say, what current millennials and Gen Zs are, they didn't care, right? Like if you were in your 20s and 30s, the conversation around Social Security is so far away, it's not really relevant. Like, I don't really care what the politicians do. Baby boomers do. Well, we're talking about the most active voter group within our population. No, I think whatever reform we see in Social Security is not going to impact current baby boomers. It absolutely will impact us. I think it's all but certain we're going to see reform. And by the way, we've already seen reform over the last several years. The Secure Act 2.0 eliminated certain strategies that were, First Secure Act eliminated certain strategies where, for example, you couldn't do what used to be called filing suspend.
Right.
Well, that was a big one. And by the way, that was one that I think really impacted, let's just say, the middle class the most. Right? Because they were the ones that were doing it and really optimizing. It's gone, so I don't even want to take up our time today talking about it. But it's one where that was a strategy that eliminated that increased solvency of the Social Security Trust Fund. We saw one in January on the Social Security
Fairness Act.
Thank you. The Fairness Act, which impacted some of the calculations for those that had pensions.
Yes.
That's another one. By the way, we're going to continue to see more and more reform on Social Security, but I think the structure of the reform is going to be I would say a little bit more aggressive in future policy, but again, it's only going to impact those that are, let's just say, younger. And coming back, just drawing parallel to the Reagan administration, what did they do? Well, they increased the percentage that we were increasing for Social Security taxation, right? So now, as you mentioned, is $176,100. Well, they've been increasing that. Prior to that, it was flat. They increased full retirement age, right? So it went from 66 up to 67. And that then made Social Security now solvent for another 75 years. Well, okay. It's not been 75 years, but it's also not insolvent yet.
Right.
So under current structure, we're projecting the trust is going to run out in 2033. And what that then means is that Social Security, if no reform happens, will only be able to pay approximately 77 cents of every dollar that they're currently paying. So it's not nothing. It's not going away. It's just because of the declining nature of the workforce, the trust has gone to offset. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to have more drawing than what's going to happen. The thing is I don't think we're even going to get there. I think we're going to have reform between now and then. Personally, I think that they're going to eliminate the base amount that they tax Social Security on. Right now, the $176,100, I think that's going to go away, which means that 6.2% is going to get taxed on everything. The reason I think that is because they already did it with Medicare. Medicare taxation used to also have a cap, no longer has a cap. And actually, they went the other way with Medicare. If you make over $250,000, you actually pay an additional 0.95. Yes. So, it's there. And I would be very, very believing that we're going to see that cap go away. The other one I think they're going to do is change full retirement age. So I think our age group, full retirement age is going to be 70. There's not going to be delayed retirement credits. It'll be there. By the way, just those two will make Social Security solvent again. So,
exactly.
And there's other ones that are being talked about. Where I think most retirees that are drawing on Social Security are being impacted now is true cost of living adjustments. Like when we talk about inflation, obviously, you can get government-produced data, which COLAs directly reflect government-produced numbers. But the thing is the inflation that really impacts us is what does it cost us to live? Right. And every household is going to be different in that regards. Like I think about 2022, you use that as a year. That was a hyperinflation year, 8.6%, roughly 8.4, 8.6. Well, if I look at the numbers in my household, it was significantly higher. We added a child. So it's like all of a sudden you have a new baby, cost structure really went up. much faster than inflation. But like, that's my real increase, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that is the real inflation number that we're talking about. And this is where cost of everything has gone up for all of us, right? And gas prices are up, food prices are up, clothes prices are up, everything is up. Now, is it in parallel with what you spend? Maybe, maybe not, right? Because I think about a retiree, they go through what I call the go-go phase, the slow-go phase, and then the no-go phase.
Exactly.
Well, depending upon where you are, you could be slowing, which means spending is actually going down.
Right.
Right. And so is it having a real impact? I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah. Social Security planning is again, just different for every household. And, I want to go back to the trust fund. So, there's two components to the trust fund, and I just want to clarify this point so our audience knows. There is the OASDI, which pays out for this current Social Security retiree benefits. And then there's also a different component, which is the disability. Mm-hmm. So the OASDI, that is what's projected to be the trust fund, which are the reserves, are projected to be depleted by 2023. And at that point, 2033. Yeah. And then it's, it'll be like, 70 some cents to the dollar. The disability component, however, is funded solid for the next 75 years.
Yep.
And then I believe the Medicare reserves are, they're pretty solid as well. So yes, there are a lot of reforms that can be done, much like in the 11th hour back in the 80s, that's what happened. And I read an interesting article that, that weighed the pros and cons of taking action now versus later. So, I think this would hurt the younger generation more. But there were, I think, a lot of positive arguments to why we should wait, kind of like similar to what happened in the 1980s. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you 1,000% that there will be some sort of reform, and the government is not going to let these benefits be reduced. No,
and again, I the cynical side of me, right, comes back and talks about like where's their voter constituents at, mm-hmm. right? And again, the largest percentage of them, baby boomers, active voting participants as baby boomers. Yeah. So I highly, highly, highly believe that we are not going to see massive reform impacting that generation.
Yeah. And a lot of, it goes back to politics too, because, it wasn't until 2021 when the Social Security spending exceeded the income that it was receiving. So there's, there's expenditures with the government that I think can be, changed as well.
Well, and some of it's post-COVID hangover, mm-hmm. right? I mean, COVID accelerated retirements faster than we ever would have modeled or anticipated to. Right. And that's, people didn't come back to work, right? And if anything, they've accelerated when people started drawing on mm-hmm. Social Security benefits because of that. I also think, it's important to remember the media sensationalizes fear. They're paid because of fear, mm-hmm. right? So like this whole conversation around Social Security running out or not being there for you, that's absolutely something that is propagated via the media. And is that going to have an impact on you? Well, I think candidly, you got to come back and run your numbers, your situation, and see how it directly interfaces with your retirement and portfolio structure. Because making a decision based on something you hear from the media or from friends or colleagues or golf buddies, like that might not be the right decision for you. And so, our mantra around anything with regards to financial wellness is really get educated, mm-hmm. understand these things, mm-hmm. understand how it has a direct implication on your situation. And frankly, the consequences of longer term decision making as well. And in some instances, by the way, the whole conversation around timing for Social Security, just bringing it back to that, it might be so negligible that the decision to take now might be, let's just say emotionally, mm-hmm. more impactful than the financial implication of that decision.
And I think that's one of the, even if it does happen, it's one of those risks that you can't control.
Correct.
Right? So, come talk to us. Let's talk about it. Let's actually put it down in numbers. And if your benefits are reduced, by 12, 13%, then let's see how that would impact your overall retirement and the projection of the numbers.
And it's very easy for us to model a plan with the reduction in Social Security benefits. But we also have a tremendous amount of tools available for any of our clients or prospective clients to look at. I would also highlight your webinar that you did a couple weeks ago, right? That's already up on the website. Use that as a resource, get educated. We also have a ton of white papers and blog posts on Social Security. So use this as a resource. Thank you for the time today. I think this was a great podcast.
Yes, this is great.
Take care.
Thank you.
The previous presentation by Bogart Wealth was intended for general information purposes only. No portion of the presentation serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice from Bogart Wealth or any other investment professional of your choosing. Different types of investments involve varying degrees of risk, and it should not be assumed that future performance of any specific investment or investment strategy or any other non-investment related or planning services, discussion, or content will be profitable, be suitable for your portfolio or individual situation, or prove successful. Neither Bogart Wealth's investment advisor registration status nor any amount of prior experience or success should be construed that a certain level of results or satisfaction will be achieved if Bogart Wealth is engaged or continues to be engaged to provide investment advisory services. Bogart Wealth is neither a law firm nor accounting firm, and no portion of its services shall be construed as legal or accounting advice. No portion of the podcast content should be construed by a client or prospective client as a guarantee that he or she will experience a certain level of results if Bogart Wealth is engaged or continues to be engaged to provide investment advisory services. Copies of Bogart Wealth's current written disclosure brochure and Form CRS discussing our advisory services and fees are available upon request or at www.bogartwealth.com.